What's up, everybody? Today I want to make a quick video and talk about when is 7% rate of return actually not a 7% rate of return. All right, it's no secret that people love to talk about their wins when it comes to investing. So when the stock market's up, people are bragging and they're talking about it all the time. And when the market's down, what they like to do is lean on their crutch called, well, I've averaged X amount rate of return over time, so I'm still in the black. I'm still doing well. If you haven't yet, you need to watch the video on averages versus actual. That's got a lot of good information in there for you too. And we teach this stuff in the course for our private training, but right now I want to give you a quick synopsis. When is 7% not actually 7%? So if I'm getting a 7% rate of return, that might be the gross rate of return, but that's not the whole story. Let me give you an example. Okay, let's start off with a 7% example. So I have a 7% rate of return, and that's my gross rate of return. I joke, if you ever have a question of what's the difference between gross and net, I'm going to give you a really good way to remember this by the end of this video. 7% is what you got, the top line. That's the top line number. But if that 7% is taxable, which most of the time it is, even if it's in a qualified account, we'll talk about that at the end. If it's in a qualified account, it's taxable. You just don't know how bad the tax is yet. So let's just assume it's a taxable at this rate. So let's say it's a 25% tax rate. So I have a 7% rate of return, and 25% of that has to go to taxes. So my net rate of return actually goes down to 5.75. That's not 7%. This is 7 is gross, 5 is net of taxes. Well, what if you have an advisor fee that's coming out at 1%? Now you're getting 4.75%. It's not as fun to talk about a 4.75% rate of return when we can talk about the gross number at 7. 7 is bigger than 4.75, so I want to talk about 7. In the financial world, you have to understand that a lot of the numbers we look at are not real. You want proof? Spend it. Take the money out from wherever it is, turn it into spendable dollars, and go spend it at the grocery store. You're not going to net the 7%. Here's how you understand the difference between gross and net. Gross is the big number. Net is the small number. I feel gross inside when I look at how big the number was before all of the other costs came out of it. So what am I going to catch in my net? That smaller number. I'm not going to catch the whale in my net. I get the smaller number. It's gross to look at the big number. It's kind of like looking at a paycheck. It's almost gross to look at what your gross pay was versus your net pay. The gross pay is what the company is actually paying you. The net pay is what actually hits your account. Two drastically different numbers. Okay? Now, let's say that this money was like inside of a qualified account or like a pre-tax account, and the growth is not taxable. It's only taxable when you take the money out. Well, ask yourself this. If you started this account when you're 30 years old and you have $100,000 and you took it all out, how much would go to the government? We don't know. There will be tax due when you take money out of a pre-taxed account. Usually. Now, what do I want to do over my lifetime? I want to add a zero. I want to turn that 100,000 into $1 million. And on paper, I'm happy. Would you be happy? Go like this. If you had $1 million in the account, that's a good thing. This is what I call an enviable problem. It's a good problem to have, but it's definitely avoidable. What's tax on $1 million versus tax on 100,000? Tax on $1 million is going to be a lot more. So we are growing our account, chasing a gross rate of return. And when you get older and you start to retire, you're going to look at the big number and go, wow, honey, we made it. We have all this money. And then you're going to say, I don't want to take it out. Why? Because we still owe the tax. We can't even calculate the net rate of return. We can't calculate this inside of a pre-taxed account because we don't know how much you're going to spend. We don't know what the market's going to do, and we don't know what Washington's going to charge you the year that you want to take the money out. So make sure that you understand the difference between gross rate of return and net rate of return. And just because you think you're getting 7 or 8 or 9% doesn't always mean that you're actually getting it. If you like this kind of information, make sure you hit that subscribe button below and watch out for the next video. We'll see you soon.